This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Like we said in the Slichos this morning, there are 5 tragedies that occurred to Klal Yisrael on Shiva B'Tammuz and 5 on Tisha B'Av. So it's interesting. The Mishnah could have said 5 things that happened on Shiva B'Tammuz and listed them. And then the Mishnah could have said 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av and listed them. No, the Lashon of the Mishnah is 5 things happened on Shiva B'Tammuz, 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av. And then the Mishnah lists the 5 things that happened in Shiva B'Tammuz and the 5 things that happened in Tisha B'Av. The Mishnah implies that there's some commonality between the 5 of Shiva B'Tammuz and the 5 of Tisha B'Av. Somehow, like, they parallel each other. 5 on Shiva B'Tammuz, 5 on Tisha B'Av. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what they are. There also seems to be some kind of significance to the number 5. 5 things happened on Shiva B'Tammuz. 5 things happened. Like, and somehow if it would be 4 and 5 or 5 and 4, it just like wouldn't be symmetrical, it wouldn't fit in, it wouldn't be right. It's smoother. Now it's real, it comes out nice. So what exactly is the significance here? So Maral understands that there is a very specific importance to the number 5, both on Shiva B'Tammuz and on Tisha B'Av. This comes from the Sefer Shuvi V'Nechza. This is from the Machshava of Hagoin, Rav Moshe Shapiro, Zechat Tzaddik L'Bracha. So the idea is like this, and hopefully we could explain it as best as possible. The Maral learns that the number 5 corresponds to the Ois Hey, the letter Hey. The Ois Hey represents creation and building. The letter Hey always reflects binyan. In fact, the Vilna Gaon, he quotes in his commentary to the Tzafra D'Tzniusa, explains that even the image of the letter Hey represents creation. So you have a little yud, right, in the leg. That represents metzius. That represents existence. That's like intrinsic existence. The small dot. That's kiyum ha'olam. And then the Rebbeinu Shalom created yesh me'ayin. So the little dot is the yesh. And then we have a line that goes from right to left and a line that goes from Safa and Tedarim. That represents the concept that after Hashem created Metzios, He spread it, L'dalet Kanfos, from right to left and from up to down. That's the letter Hey. Hey represents creation. In fact, there's an Arizal, we probably said it over many times already, that the letter Hey is the letter of fertility. To have a child, you need the influence of the letter Hey. So, for example, Avram and Sarai had no Hey in their names. That Arizal says. So they had some kind of difficulty. So Hashem gave them, Avram got the letter Hey. Sarai got the letter Hey. In fact, Arizal says, this is Merumaz in the Pasuk. Hey lachem zara. Hey is the letter of children. Why? Because the letter Hey represents binyan. It represents creation. It represents creation. Yitzchak and Rivka, she had a Hey. They had a child. It was difficult. Yitzchak didn't have the Hey. Rivka had the Hey. Yaakov has no Hey. Rachel has no Hey. Leah's okay. Leah has children. She has the Hey. Rachel has no Hey. So what does she do? She says, I'll give you Bilha. Bilha has 2 Heys. Ulai ibane mimena. Maybe I could be built from mimen Hey, from her Hey. That's Arizal. Arizal writes this a number of times. The letter Hey is a letter of fertility. It's a letter of binyan. Hey represents existence. The Yud is kiyum ha'olam, and the 2 directions represent it being nespashed l'chol dalet haruchais. In fact, the Arizal says there are 3 ways to spell Hey. There's Hey. You can spell Hey Aleph, Hey, and Hey Yud. Yeah. Hey Yud means a Hey is a woman. Hey Yud means she's pregnant with a zachar. Hey, she's pregnant with a nekeva. And Hey Aleph, right, could be Hey Yud, Hey Aleph. Hey Aleph is maybe twins, maybe something else. But the letter Hey, that rewrites, that's where there are 3 ways. In Gematria, when you figure out words, b'miwuam, the Hey could always be spelled in 3 ways. Hey Aleph, Hey Yud. Anyway, so the concept here is, and Ramesh Shapiro speaks about this at length, is Shiva B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av parallel each other. The 5 tragedies of Shiva B'Tammuz parallel the 5 tragedies of Tisha B'Av. And they simultaneously destroy the world and create the world. Meaning as follows. Before Shiva B'Tammuz, think about the matzav of the world. Hashem gave us the Torah. There was no death. Right? It says, Ani amarti Elohim atem uvnei Elyon kolachem achein ka'adam timoson. that before we sinned with the Egel, we were going to live forever. We were going to be infinite. We were going to be eternal, like before the Chet of the Yetzadas. And when Moshe broke the Luchos, and after the Chet of Egel, we had to die again. So Hashem, so to speak, had to recreate the world. The world was recreated on Shiva B'Tammuz. There were new things that were brought to the world. Misa was brought to the world. Sheker was brought to the world. Avodah Zarah was brought to the world. The world was recreated. The world was originally created to be perfect. But ultimately, we sinned with the Eitz Hadas, but we were masaking that at Matan Torah. Shiva Asar B'Tammuz recreated the world. There were things introduced to the world that did not exist before. There was no such thing as Avodah Zarah until Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. That kind of sheker was created, and that's the concept of the 5 things. The 5 things represents a creation. There was a new binyan on Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. On the other hand, it could be looked at that Shiva Asar B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av destroyed the world. The world was necharav. Now, if the world is created ba'ois hey, right? We know Hashem created this world with the letter hey. We say it every morning. Ki b'chka Hashem tzur olamim. God created olam haba with a yud, and He created olam hazeh with a hey. Now, I'm going to tell you 2 pshatim. Why did God have to use a hey to create this world? So the Gemara says, you look at the letter hey, it's easy to fall out. In this world, it's very easy to fall out. You could be a gavaldik, you could be very frum, you could be very observant, you could be very dedicated. You could fall out when you're 10, you could fall out when you're 11, you could fall out when you're 12, you could fall out when you're 20, you could fall out when you're 30, you could fall out when you're 40. Yochanan Kain Gadol fell out when he was 80. That's this world. It's a very tenuous world. It's easy to take a misstep in different areas in life, and you could lose it all. But you could always come back in. That's what the Gemara says. There's a hole to get back in. So Gemara asks, why can you come back through the same hole? No, it's not easy. Once you fall out, you need extra siyata d'shmaya. That's what the Gemara says. I once read in one of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's books, why did Hashem create the world with the letter Hey? So he asks, why did Hashem create the world with anything? Why do we say Hashem created the world by speaking? Why do He have to speak? Why couldn't He have just thought? Hashem could do anything. The answer is, it's just the mashal. The mashal is, for God to create this world, it was a cinch. Think about what's the easiest letter of the Hebrew alphabet to articulate and pronounce. The letter Hey. It doesn't require any of the 5 faculties of speech. It's just a breath. So it doesn't mean Hashem created the world with the letter Hey. It just means it was very easy for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to create the world. So that's the concept. There are 5 things that happened in Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, 5 things that happened on Tisha B'Av. Shiva Asar B'Tammuz introduced into the world new ideas, new concepts that were foreign to what the world was before, and it hurled the world into a state of chorban. One final thought. You know, the Kriyas HaTorah that we have on any particular day is very much connected to the essence of that day. Only on a tainus we do something in the Kriyas HaTorah that we don't do any other time. And that is, we jump. We're reading Vayichal, one column of the Sefer Torah, and we do something that halachically we're not allowed to do at any other time. When you're laying from the Chumash, you can only do it when you're laying from the Nevi'im. We actually jump an entire column, we skip the next column, and we go to the 3rd column, Vayifsal. So, what do we see from that? What's the significance of that? There must be some kind of idea that on a tainus we have to realize there's a gap, there's a hole, there's something chasar in us, because the Torah and Klal Yisrael are one. So it's, so to speak, there's a gap in our Torah, there's a gap in us. There's a gap we have to fill in. Something's missing. We're not making the connections. You know, we're here, we know there's a Torah, we know there's a God, but there's something missing. There's a disconnect. We have a disconnect between what we know. As Rabbi Sol Salanter says, the biggest gap in the world, the largest space in the world, is between the head and the heart. We know everything, but we don't feel it. We don't feel it. That's the message of the Kriyas HaTorah, the tainus, that all the things that we know to be factual, to be true, to be emes, but we're lacking in our leiv, we're lacking in our perception of it and our feeling of it. So we should be zoicha that through this tainus, which is a Yom Tshuva, Yivam Hashem should give us siyata d'shmaya, lamale chesroi noisenu, and we should be zoicha to the binyan of Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. Have an easy fast.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.